I'm going to see if I can help you get a little bit more comfortable with the concept of style and certainly subject as we begin work 3. I'm directing your attention over here to show you where some of these readings are going to happen. The first thing, of course, you want to do is go right into the subject and style section, and it will introduce this concept. Now, I'm just going to summarize it, but what I'm telling you is no substitute for you're actually going through there and trying to figure out what these two terms mean and how to apply them. Don't lose any kind of touch with the fact that you're continuing to use those terms from Elements and Principles. In fact, they are indelibly imprinted on every aspect of this course. So if you don't know Elements and Principles terms right now, I'm not going to shake my finger in your face. I'm just going to say, get that list I hope you made out, or some of the lists that I've sent you, and begin to follow them studiously. All right? Now, when we talk about, for an example, this Les Demoiselles d'Avignon by Pablo Picasso, we're going to look at the concept of style and subject here. Now, in fact, if you're looking at a subject, usually you're looking at the content. Now, if you know a little bit about what this term means, you understand the translation here is the ladies of the avenue. All right, well, we'll kind of skip over the occupation of the ladies, and we'll talk a little bit about the fact that they're ladies. So if I ask you what the subject was here, you could look at these and say the content, well, they're women. Now, we're not talking about if they're good women, bad women, pretty women, ugly women, skinny women, fat women. We're not talking about any of that. There are women here. That's what the subject is about, okay? Now, we can talk more about the piece if we begin to look at style. Style is not the content of the piece. Style is the way the piece is put together. More than anything, style is hitting the elements and the principles. The way the paint is applied, the way the shapes are controlled. Get the picture? So that's going to tell you a lot about that. Now, if you want more information, you go to the second reading. It's going to talk to you a little bit more about content versus subject. Now, I said a minute ago that subject was kind of the content, and it is. It is. But the point they're making here is that sometimes it's not the whole picture. Look at this piece, if you would, just a minute, and let me take you back to the one we just left. And I'm going to scroll down a bit on this one, and you'll see this Napoleon crossing St. Bernard Pass, okay? Picture of Napoleon. So if we said, what is the content or the subject? You'd say Napoleon. He's on a horse, Napoleon. And if you read the title, you'd say, he's crossing St. Bernard Pass. Well, you'll go into further detail if you look at some of the applications of the style. Certainly the style here is pretty amazing. You have the diagonal lines of the horse and the diagonal lines of the background, that diagonal line. You have even his arm pointing diagonally. So you have so much movement, the wind coming through the horse's mane and tail. And you have this very young, very heroic Napoleon. Look at the way the cape is also making that wonderful diagonal line. You have this great, heroic, wonderful Napoleon going through St. Bernard Pass. I mean, what a leader, right? Okay, but then if you look at this Napoleon, same guy, if you'll come up here in just a minute. Whoop, that's not the one I wanted, sorry. Same guy, basically, but he doesn't look quite as victorious, does he? Look at how he's in a vertical position. That's not dynamic. That's not movement at all, is it? And he's not riding that beautiful white horse. He's riding a mule. And he even has a guide. Well, now what's the content? Well, it's Napoleon crossing again, but this one is more. The subject is more than just Napoleon. You see what I mean by content? This subject is Napoleon crossing the Alps again, but this time he's not this heroic figure. In fact, this becomes almost very historically accurate. And the point of this picture then is not to give us the subject Napoleon as a hero and a leader, but the subject Napoleon as he really was. All right? So when we're looking at subject and content, almost the same thing, but content sometimes is a little bit more than just what the subject is. All right? Now let's talk a little bit about style. Now I'll get into that piece I was in a minute ago. We have to wait for this wonderful slideshow to load up. Now, in this particular case, and I'll adjust that, the style, the subject is clearly a chair. All of these, they're chairs, right? And in that, they're functional. And we'll talk about functional a little later. But look at how the style of that chair is rendering the chair, all right? So this is where we're talking about style. Now, this is a great slideshow. You go through here, you'll learn a lot more, and I'm not going to read it to you, but you'll learn a lot about what the style is. They're talking about naturalism. They're talking about cubism. You know what I would do if I were you? I would make a list of these and keep them right by my keyboard so that when you start looking at these pieces, you begin to understand a little bit about what they're telling you to do. Now, the second section over here, and I just click Style 2, will bring you into some more slides. They're also going to tell you about style. Now, it's just a teaspoonful of the whole pudding, if you would, because you're not going to have time or space here to get into it a lot. But it'll give you just the definition. In this particular case, we're talking about trompe-l'œil, which is that fool the eye French term that means it's so real you'd swear it was real, or a photograph at the very least. Photorealism is another point. And if you go on a little bit further, we're talking about illusionism, the way you create an illusion, making things seem what they aren't. And here's another one, idealism. So keep your little list, write these terms down, and as you use them and begin to consider them, they'll mean more and more and more to you, okay? So I was just trying to lay to rest here the difference in what you're dealing with in this third week, which is the style and the subject materials. And if you'll look at the assignments, you'll see that they're all here. Now, in addition to these assignments, I also have at the end of the third assignment in week 3 is going to be about a quiz. Now, let me give you just a word about that quiz, all right? You'll go here to the page, and when you're ready to begin, you're going to click here. Now, when you begin, you'll have a series. I think there are 10 multiple choice questions. You can take that quiz and change those answers as many times as you want, given the due date. Now, the due date I'm showing you here is a past course. This isn't the course, the due date you're going to have. But you can take it 20 times before that date right there, and you'll be fine. That's on the multiple choice. Now, there are also 2 essay questions, but look around, do your research as you do this. This isn't about measuring what you know. It's about measuring kind of how you can find out, okay? So this quiz is not to be anything that you worry too much about. And then I'll also be calling you this week because I'd like to talk with you and make sure that we're all doing okay. Okay? So anyway, that's it. That hopefully gives you a little bit better idea about subject and style. Make that list, keep it handy, and as I said, subject is about the content, although a little bit more, what's going on. Style is more about the way it's constructed. You know, how are those principles and elements used? How's that paint applied? What kind of lines do you see? All right? And then, of course, there's several terms that you're going to be introduced to with style. Make a list of those. Don't try to remember them right off. You never will. You will need to, of course, take the time. Anyway, hoping that this helps some and dispels some of the questions that you may have had or I may have heard that you had. At any rate, wishing you well, and I'll look forward to seeing your submissions.